Hey, this is Rob. This is episode 58 of the Folly Coffee Podcast. Let's get it brewing. All right, I'm here with Golnaz Yamoutpour of Eat, Drink, Dish Minneapolis, consultant.
Yes.
Owner of Eclectic Media.
Yes.
Founder of Eat, Drink Minneapolis, like I said, on Instagram. 70.9 thousand followers as of this morning. 5 years, City Page's best Instagram reader's choice, killing it, and a marketing MBA.
Yeah, all of that.
That 70,000, like,
yeah.
I follow you, I've been following you, and I was always like,
cool.
oh, yeah. I think when I started following you, you were like 50,000, and
okay.
all of a sudden I just popped in. I was like, whoa, what the heck is going on?
We kind of just, 50,000 was it 2 years ago, I think? And it was also the first time I was on TV. So I have a friend that was in PR, and she's like, let's just do a press release. I'm like, okay. And I didn't know it was going to pick up, or I thought it was going to be like a little article. And then I didn't know that she does TV only. And so I got picked up by like WCCO, Jason Show, and Twin Cities Live all in like a month. And I'm like, all right.
Well, it's kind of funny how the flywheel works sometimes. You know, flywheel's the thing that's like really hard to get cranking at first. And then as it gets cranking, it goes faster and easier to go and go. Yeah. And I'm really excited to dig into your story because I think a lot of people with your account are just like, of course she has a big following. It's Eat, Drink, Dish Minneapolis. Everybody follows it. But I was digging into some numbers, and here's one that really sticks out to me.
Okay.
So as of this morning, or probably more by now, maybe 3,561 posts over the period of 6 years and 8 months. Here's the crazy part, is that's an average of 1.45 posts a day for nearly 7 years.
It's insane.
And so, because I'm like, well, there's one secret to success right there. Yeah. That is like the social media grind.
Yeah, it is. It was a formula back then. I mean, we started in 2014, so social media was like cranking, especially Instagram was cranking up a little bit. So no one knew how to really get big, and we kind of just, I think, we had a great recipe of just timing and content, and kind of the first people in Minnesota to really just build a community around food on social media. But yeah, I was one of those people that was just obsessed with it, like social media. I was like on it all the time. I was researching. I was like, look at everyone's account. Like, it was, like the founder syndrome where once you get into something, you're obsessed with it, I'm sure you've experienced in your career.
No, I'm not obsessed at all. People describe me as super laid back and not at all. No, God, no, I'm super neurotic. When you're saying we, I know you have a big team. So who is the we? Has it always been a we? Did you start by yourself? How does this kind of evolve?
Sometimes that's just me. Because it takes more than me. I'm a humble brag. I don't like being like, it's all about me. So I would say we.
Well, then you're going to hate the format of this podcast. Oh, really? This is literally all about you.
Yeah, no, that's cool. But no, I actually did start it with a partner. It was two of us for 2 years, and then we like LLC'd it right away. So I started during my MBA program. So once I started like business school is when I started Eat, Drink, Dish. It was kind of like, let's put this stuff in practice. Maybe we can make something out of it. And it just didn't work out. Like I was really new to the business world. I grew up in a very entrepreneurial world. So my parents owned businesses. I was always surrounded by entrepreneurs. I just never experienced it myself. So, but yeah, the partnership didn't really go well. I bought her out like the end of the second year, right when we started making money. And I just didn't feel like we were pulling the same weight. Lesson learned. It was like one of the biggest business decisions I ever had to make. I had to get like lawyers involved and all that stuff. Yeah, it wasn't fun. We also didn't have a membership agreement. When you come in an LLC, you have these like roles and responsibilities. We just kind of just did it.
Yeah.
And we're like, maybe we'll make money, maybe we won't. And then we started making money. I'm like, this isn't going to cut it.
Yeah, that's a tough thing. It is something that I read about early on, and thankfully had heard enough horror stories of that I was like, you kind of have to picture if this thing did work, what the roles and responsibilities would be before. And it's like you get that imposter syndrome sometimes.
Right.
We're talking about stuff as if, especially in 2014, because Instagram at this time, I can't imagine too many people, especially with like a focus on food, were making a lot of money off something like this. So how did you come up with the idea to start doing this in the first place?
Yeah. Well, it was a lifestyle thing. Like I was 27 when I started. Like broke as a joke kind of thing. I had my first corporate job at 25. I was never cut out for corporate. I knew it wasn't. But like the going out to dinner or going out to eat and like having that social life was an escape for me, and also was able for me to like travel with like trying different cuisines. And so I was like, well, I do so much. Might as well see if I can share that and really build a community. And I know what's good. Like, I have always been known as like that friend that knows where to go eat. Even with my family, I'm always the one like ordering for other people. So I was like, might as well use something that's naturally given to you and like put it out there and see what happens.
Yeah, that's like back when the term influencer was like it was literally what the word meant, and it didn't turn into like the negative derogatory thing it has become now. Like back in the day, influencer just meant like, this is somebody that influences people, and usually because of somebody in your situation that you're like, I really like food, and I'm kind of the person that people come to for recommendations. Maybe I should start sharing this.
Yeah, it was also like the rise and fall of the word foodie. Foodie was a huge term, and then that got tainted. So then we just stopped using the word. Like, I don't even use it anymore because everyone's like, oh, I'm not a foodie. And like, it's funny how like language just changes like so fast.
Especially in the social media age, when things become like a hashtag or a trend, a word that like is based in a genuine meaning or like genuine like feelings about something gets twisted really fast. So when you're starting, and you said that, you know, year 2, you had to kind of go through this whole legal battle.
Yeah.
How quickly did things begin to pick up? Did you see any sort of like a quick rise? And let's go back to day 1 here. I'm trying to picture 2014 and like what Instagram was. At this time, obviously cameras on phones have evolved greatly to now where anyone can take amazing photography. Not so much in 2014.
No.
How did you decide, like, this is how we're going to take our pictures, this is what the photos are going to look like, this is what we're going to focus on?
So I'm not a photographer at all. I have art school in high school, but photography wasn't, I just have an eye for things. But one of the major things I wanted to do was to build that, like, I don't know where I saw it. I probably saw it on some other person's account, but it was like, use our hashtag to get featured on our page. The whole like getting featured on our page was something we started right away, but we obviously like we started with our own camera phones. Like I had an iPhone 4 at the time, I think. So it was like a little camera and we just take photos. And then it took a while for people to catch on, obviously, to start tagging us. And once that happened, then we started reposting. But we also, I think in the beginning too, repost a lot of restaurant photos. But it was just like the hardest part was getting people used to a behavior that was new. And also at that time, like a lot of people in Minnesota weren't even, like, we're very slow here in the Midwest. We weren't even on Instagram. So I'm like, we actually started on Twitter and we got like 50 followers within a day. And we're like, well, let's go on to Instagram next and see what happens.
And I suppose also the consumer expectation of photography wouldn't be the same as it is now, because like you don't have all the Photoshop apps and everything that are now readily available. Back then you see an iPhone 4 picture and you're like, oh, this is the latest iPhone picture. This looks good to me now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Back when you had the flip phone and like you could almost tell that was a person. You're like, this is insane. There's a camera in my phone.
Yeah.
So you're using like restaurant photos, when you say hashtag get featured, was that somebody that like, hey, use our hashtag and we'll feature your picture? Yeah,
so we coined the hashtag 8drinkdishmpls, and then I think tagging was still around. I don't remember now, but people use both, but we, like, a lot of people just started using the @ tag within the picture, and once people start tagging us, we just reposted them and give photo credit, and that was a huge emotional satisfaction and gratification people got. And we're like, in marketing, that's kind of a thing, you know, you want people to feel good, and that's kind of always been our thing.
How many followers do you think an account has to have? Here's a question I've posed before. It's unrelated, but it's kind of the same thing. I've gone through this thought experiment. You know how people get excited at a full arena and they get on the camera?
Yeah.
What is the fewest number of people there would have to be in a crowd where you'd still be excited that you're on camera?
And like, what do you mean?
This is just a rhetorical question, but here's where I want to ask you.
Excited?
How many followers do you think an account has to have for someone to be excited that their photo got reshared?
I think it's at least 1,000. I think it's like, it's how you brand it, I think, and what that account really means. But I think, I mean, if I was reposting an account that's 1,000 followers and it was about food or something, I'd be like, oh, that's cool. It's at least more. It's a different. It's a different, what do you call it? You're just reaching different audience, basically, as well. So, and
as you're growing, do you have like a set plan in place ahead of time, or do you keep it loose for the different strategies that work?
Very loose. It's kind of like, it's very organic. I really am. The hardest part for me is getting in those processes of like we haven't even done scheduled posts yet. Like, I don't even, everything's organic.
That was going to be a question I had much later on. So you're at this point, you're still not even scheduling posts.
No, not really.
That makes 1.45 average posts a day for 7 years. Absolutely
I always
insane.
felt like it was inauthentic to do scheduled posts because obviously, I mean, once you do, it's like set it and forget it. But then if you're like not with the times, especially right now with like the cultural, everything's going on right now.
Yeah.
If you schedule something a week ago and you forgot and like it can be tone deaf, like you have to be really careful what you post nowadays. I'm just not going to risk that right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the Instagram is so constantly evolving and changing. Because I remember at one point we were growing with the Folly Instagram like crazy, and then all of a sudden like the algorithm changed where it was no longer chronological, or it's like I have trouble keeping up with them.
They always change it.
Yeah, are these the type of things that like you're staying on top of, or is it reactive? How far in advance do you find out about these things, and how do you react when Instagram does change how users are interacting with content?
Yeah, with my marketing background and just being in the world, I kind of have to be on top of things because I do consulting as well. It seems like Instagram changes. It used to be like every summer they would change something. Like around June, it was something they come out with. But now it's like all the time. There's new features. There's new stories. I mean, it's kind of insane. I'm on social media every day. So by going in, there's always something going on. Then you got to learn about it. So it's all the time. It's all the time. You're always like tweaking stuff.
Because one of the things I've kind of been trying to wrap my brain around is like the number of followers versus engagement. Because my sister's in social media too. Yeah, she works at Forward Marketing downtown. And she says, and I'm sure you've faced this before, someone comes to you, let's say I come to you, and I'm like, I just want to grow my following at all costs. I don't care. I'll spend whatever. I just want X amount of followers.
Yeah.
Versus you could gain 10,000 followers that aren't highly engaged versus 100 that are highly engaged. How do you kind of balance between the two of which is more important, the follower count or how they're engaged with that account?
I always think how they're engaged is the better statistic. And that's also changed too. It used to be comments and likes, and then they took away likes. Now it's like saves and shares. So now like one photo we had like 353 shares. So people like sending them to each other's. So that's now a new engagement tool that people use now.
See, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's like everything. There's like changes all the time. Like comments now, they're cool, but there's so many bots out there now. Like, and there's always these engagement pods too. So you don't know if those are like real comments or.
So explain that, because I just learned about this like a month ago.
Oh yeah.
There was I forgot who it was, between two local influencers. There's some big controversy that you ever get caught on just like a thread on some random thing, and you're like, wait, why did I just read about this for 45 minutes? So explain to me the pod.
Yeah, the engagement pod is basically, I don't know how it came about, but it started with, I think, an influencer, basically asking other influencers to get into this group. They call them pods, I guess. And it's like, hey, join our pod. And then let's say there's 20 people in that pod. This is all online. And they're like, okay, so in order for us to all like help each other, whenever someone posts, you go and like and comment. And so like I would have to go like and comment 20 people. So I have to always be on that stuff too. And vice versa, they would do the same for me. There are some people that we repost, and like I can't repost them anymore because it's like, you know, like the Beyonce, like the bee, like the bees swarm you. It's like the swarm of comments. I'm like, who are these people? These aren't even like people that live in Minnesota. Like this is just, it's like spam. Like and so that doesn't work for me because a lot of the reason we started Eat Drink Dish was to really help businesses. Like I'm really business minded, so I'm like, we need our comments and audience to be like real people, not just whatever person. Yeah,
because on the business owner's side, the biggest challenge we have in determining like marketing spend is ROI, especially when you're small. That you're trying to like make sure that the dollars you're spending, you're being really efficient. And so something like social media spend can be intimidating because you're like, what is the ROI? How do we know what actually came from this? And when the ROI of like people I've sent that have like sent, you know, I'll just get these random messages of like, we can get this many likes for this cost, and you're like, okay, you know, it's like, do I want the security blanket of like, I got this many likes, that's neat, or how many of these people actually switched and converted? And I've seen campaigns like that where they're like, look at this boost of likes, and you realize that all the comments are like, these are not anybody that ended up being a customer.
Right.
And so that goes back to kind of the engagement thing. It seems to me the people I've spoken to that are on the social media side are like, engagement is way more important. And then the people that are on like my side, the supplier side, or like the business side are like, oh, we need more followers. And my take on it is kind of weird.
Okay.
Because people on my side think followers is more important. They value a business with more followers higher. And so it actually has helped us in meetings. And I'm sure it's helped you in terms of like publicity reach of just like the amount of followers. But in terms of online campaigns, it's the engaged customers that are actually determining the online success. So it's really strange in that way.
It's kind of like, I always think of like in people format, like it's like we're the cool kid. You got to be the cool kid, and you also like have to have people that talk to you at the same time. You can't just like look cool. You also have to have some value in you. And I think a lot of people can look cool on Instagram, but like, there's no one coming to their birthday party, kind of like it's like crickets, but it's really hard. It's that's why we like went the organic route, and that's why it's taking so long to like really get to what we really want to do with Eat Drink Dish too.
Do you change the strategy of like growth versus engagement depending on the type of business you're working with or the type of account that's approaching for your consulting services?
So a lot of people, like, as you said, come for like, I need more followers. Like I had a musician once that just wanted more followers. And I'm like, well, you then have to be aggressive about, like, you post 1.8 times a day. Like you have to have a lot of content. You have to talk all the time. You basically have to live on social media. And then very rarely do people actually ask for engagement. And engagement usually is like in the form of giveaways. I'm like, do a giveaway. Like that's, unless you have to provide value on social media. If you're just like posting and promoting your product, no one cares. Like those are just ads.
Zach, who I had on Zach Lyman, he's a comedian and also does marketing. I've had him on a previous episode, and he said it best. And this has stuck with me so much. He's like, nobody wakes up in the morning with the thought, I wonder what Target posted today.
Yeah, exactly.
But they definitely follow them. And so you're like, oh, so you've got an unengaged person following because it's Target, but they're posting things like it's all just promotion of what's going on in the store. And so it's kind of a tough thing to get around.
It is.
And so going to kind of the pod thing, because that kind of reminds me of a topic that comes up, is how have you found when you are working with businesses that are like, especially like restaurants that like you're in, that are potentially like comping meals or paying you to promote what they're doing. What do you think is the best way for it to be a win-win situation? Because you do hear about influencers coming in with this like pod mentality, ton of followers, ton of, I'm doing air quotes, like tons of comments and like heart, that looks amazing. I totally have to try this. And then you realize all the people saying they have to try it don't live in Minnesota or where the thing is. What are the tips that you would give to businesses on setting up a successful partnership, that if they're going to be spending money on like trying to drive traffic to their restaurant or to run a promotion for around a specific type of thing, what would you do to set them up for success to make sure that they don't run into the thing where they feel like, oh man.
Yeah. So if I was consulting, and I usually say this all the time, and I think a lot of people don't even when I get hired on, no one asks for my analytics, which is like kind of mind blowing. So I'm like, so you're really based off of like the numbers I have, like my follower numbers, which is fine. But what I usually say to a lot of businesses that I like and I like trust, I'm like, you need to check their followership. Like I just ask them their insights and just see how many people live in Minnesota. And that's it. It's really where the authenticity comes from. If they have like, 60%, 70% of their audience in Minnesota, it's probably a legit account,
That's a super simple, but like,
and it's not like it's not like illegal to ask. It's not bad. It's not frowned upon. It's like legit. Ask them where their followers are from. And then they just be like, can you give me a snapshot of your insights or like your snapshot of your audience demographic? They should be able to get that for free on Instagram.
I've never even thought to ask that question. I think it is because it's like,
it's something you would only know if you're like really in it, but yeah.
And do you provide like analysis of insights to show you like, here's what, because here's something I've ran into too, is I've seen insights before. I'm like, is this good?
Yeah.
I run a Facebook ad or something. I get the numbers back. I'm like, it seems like a lot of views? Is that good? Or do you provide that kind of service of like setting expectations? Because I think that's a big part.
I do. I usually sometimes even compare it to, let's say you put a billboard up or you put an ad in a magazine or something. Like I always can compare it to traditional media, and you really at the end of the day are getting more bang for your buck on social media. Like one of our posts can reach like 20 to 30,000 people in Minnesota, and most of our followers, it's like 90% Minnesota in our followership. Versus like if you put $5,000 ad in like a magazine, I mean, I don't know. You're not going to get a click-through rate. You're just going to get someone looking at it. That's which is called impressions. So, but we get like 500, was it like 500,000? No, we get like about 1 million impressions a month just on our Instagram page. So how many people come in and out of our page? Not even just a follower. So it's whatever. So we have like a lot of value. It just right now it's a time for us to like organize that and also share that with the world and be like, hey, you can probably do business with us and like save a lot more money versus putting an ad in like a newspaper or something like that.
That's like an unfathomable number. I'm trying to like process right now. And this episode will be coming out in a few weeks. Oh, okay. So when this episode airs, your new is this 11/11 date we had spoken about in the past still on the calendar?
Yeah. Okay. So it changed to 11/10 because Veterans Day is 11/11, so we didn't want to compete. That's like a marketing thing. But yeah, with the elections and stuff, we were kind of like, I don't know if this is the right time, but like it's been in the works for like 15 months now, and I'm like, in 2020 was just. Can we swear on here or no? Yeah. It was just a shit show. Yeah. Like a lot of stuff that we planned like wasn't happening. We didn't really make any money this year at all. Mm-hmm. So this was something that it's like a passion project, but also a response to whatever we've been seeing the last 6 years and kind of doing a cultural shift on our end, like basically shaping the culture of how to dine and how to find places to eat and drink, with a lot more positivity versus negativity. So, I mean, we actually already posted today, so I can talk about it. But it's basically a curated food and restaurant guide for Twin Cities right now, and it's our way to separate ourselves from Instagram because Instagram does not pay us at all. Like we're not YouTubers, so we don't get anything from Instagram. It also allows us to scale too eventually. So if we wanted to go to Chicago or if we want to do other places, this is a great way for us to start doing that. Yeah. And it also helps restaurants. Part of it is you can join for free, and it's supposed to be this kind of a lifestyle brand. So you go on there and you'll see no more than like 5 to 15 recommendations per category of an appetite. We're not doing like 50 lists of places to go for sushi and it's like that stuff is over. Like we're so tired of those like lists that like I can't even deal with it. Like I'll just scroll and like who cares? There's gonna be a lot of personality in it. It's called Eddy. So
how do you spell that?
EDDY. And the reason behind the name is a couple reasons. These days, especially in the food world, it's super hard to trademark anything with food. Like the name, it's so hard to find a name unless you're like cease and desist letter in 2 seconds. So Eddy is basically just eat, drink, dish with a Y. Nice. And it's a name and it's cool. We made it into like a personality, but you can't tell it the gender, obviously. I mean, like it's basically me and I'm not a man. So, but it's really fun. It's all custom design. I worked with my friend Teresa. She lives in Seattle, but she came from a fashion background and she developed and designed the entire thing from scratch. But yeah, you can join for free and get all the recommendations, our curated recommendations. So that means like anything that we've tried and we think is best in the Twin Cities. But then you can also join our Yum Club, which is our paid version or our like our little exclusive version. And for $48 a year, which it comes down like $4 a month, and 3% of those, the first year membership will go to North Stands, which is a nonprofit in Twin Cities. I don't know if you're familiar. Yeah. So their mission is to basically help rebuild the restaurant industry. And I guess their focus right now, they pivoted their focus to more BIPOC owners and restaurant owners. So even you can join for free. If you don't want to pay, that's fine. And if you do want to pay, you're contributing to the rebuild of our community, which is awesome. And you get all these exclusive goodies, content. We'll have, like you guys will hopefully be on there for experiences. And then the first 50 right now, which when we launch, we'll get, if you sign up for the Yum Club for the first 50, we'll get these launch boxes, which is our branded launch box. There'll be some goodies in there, some local brands, and like a mask and some other fun stuff too.
It's such a smart move, because going back to what I was saying in terms of like engagement is what I realized as we built a new website is that it was like, our previous website, we were not capturing any emails. We were not really doing newsletters. Okay. We weren't really offering anything of like, why would somebody want to subscribe to Folly, or like why would I want to do that? And as things constantly evolve with social media, I mean, Instagram itself is changing. It's acquired by Facebook. Now all of a sudden I get a notification this week that the messaging is the same. And I'm like, wait, what's going on?
I know.
And being able to bring people into something you separate, that you own, and that you can like really have complete control of, because that's the most frustrating thing, is like when you can work really, really hard at something and put together like such a beautiful like array of photos and recommendations, and then they change the algorithm and you have to like completely change how you do things. And so I'm really excited to see what you do here. And I think the key to what you said is like, so many lists happen. Yeah. And I see this in coffee a lot, where I go, oh, this person has not been to a single one of these, I guarantee it, just based on the description. Right. Or it's not somebody that's like, or they're making these lists and they don't care about the list, but it's like, oh, this sushi is a great example. This is trending. Let's make a list of sushi places and only base it off like, Yelp. Yeah, exactly. And we'll just go top star Yelp to lowest star Yelp. That you've tried all these things. Yeah. Is like, that's what really separates it. And the amount of work is like, I know some people are like, oh, it's so hard to go try all this awesome food. And you're like, no, it's actually a lot of work.
Yeah. A lot of money and a lot of work.
And to be able to have those like personal recommendations and have it, I'm really excited to see it. Yeah. And it'll be really cool to have someone that's been in all these places and to know how connected you are in the food and beverage community. It's like, it's somebody that's like actually behind all of these things versus just like, I don't know, whatever blog. I don't know who's writing this. I don't know how they're basing their decisions. To the transparency, I think, is what would be key for something like that, which is exciting. Yeah. I think our tagline is no rants, ratings, or reviews, just great food. Because we're all like really tired of like the rants and the rating, like everything, especially with this year with like the restaurant industry going to shit basically. To go review a restaurant right now that's just a low point for you. Oh, super smart. Okay. So by limiting the list, you've actually taken out the need to have negative reviews, because now no negativity. Now you've got it that, hey, this place is on our list. It's good. Yeah, exactly. That's super smart. Yeah, and it'll be rotating too. I mean, if you don't see your favorite place on there, it'll probably eventually come. It's all seasonal too. Like we'll probably focus on ramen and like comfort food in the winter, and then summer like a lot of patio places. It's just Oh, that's super smart. Yeah, because there's like this thing with negativity where people are like, I hate negativity, and then okay, well, why is the Facebook algorithm designed to just show you what you interact with and everything's negative? It's like it's almost unavoidable. Exactly. And that's a really cool way, because sometimes I've heard this before too, and actually I kind of agree with it in a weird way, is that like somebody who's like, I'm a food reviewer, and you only see positive reviews, you start to lose a little credibility. Right. And so that's the first concept I've heard, where you're like, we only give positive reviews, but all of these things are actually super legit. Yeah. And it's like, well, technically they're not reviews, but they're more like, hey, go here. We tried it. It's awesome. Try this out. Because then we do become like a reviewer. But yeah, I've gotten that in the past too. Like, why don't you ever put anything negative on your Instagram? I'm like, well, there's a lot of other places you can go for that. There's Google reviews. There's Yelp. There's like, I don't know, TripAdvisor. There's so many places where you can go and rant and rave or whatever. But, I don't know. I Facebook's awesome. Facebook, like the whole world, and you can do it on your own social media nowadays. But it was like, there needs to be a place where people advocate for restaurants and small business owners, and I don't think there's a lot of places that do that. Yeah, and then you don't even really need the review process, because it's kind of set up that, hey, if it's on this list, we really like it. Yeah. And the description is what it is. Yeah. And we're really good at taking stuff down. Like during the whole like George Floyd stuff and all that in the summer, there was a lot of bad PR coming out for restaurants. And we had to be super careful who we reposted. So if we heard anything of like,
this restaurant like was racist, or they treat their employees bad. If there's like, we actually do get a lot of like personal DMs and like receipts. People will show us stuff like, please don't like support them. We actually do take those into account. I mean, I try to go through them and make sure they're legit like things, but we definitely don't want to support things that aren't, aligned with what we believe in either.
Yeah, that's a really tough topic to handle on social media, because you sometimes in serious topics you want to hear the full discussion, but it's almost not allowed on social media. It's like, hey, I told you about this and you didn't respond in 10 seconds. How dare you?
Or it's like, we got that before.
Whereas like, if we're talking in person, that's not how humans work. Like, you wouldn't tell me something, then I go, okay, I'm going to completely change my idea, my idea of what I had about this restaurant or this person based on this one thing without figuring out if that's true or not.
Right.
And that was a time where it's like, there's so much information coming in that it's hard to parse out what is legitimate, what is not legitimate, and wanting to take it seriously because of the magnitude of that, the issue and the divide that was happening in the Twin Cities. It was really, really tough.
It was really I was super scared to post anything. I mean, we post like the George Floyd thing. I think we posted on a Friday, like an actual our first post of like, we're going to take a break. And we even got crap for that because we took too long to respond. I mean, I think it was like 3 days we took to respond.
Yeah.
And they're like, you just took too long. You're like, you're marketing. You just did it. It was just, and it's hard to like not really take that personally because you're like, oh, it's just me. Like you're talking to like me. But then you just have to kind of like take time. I have this thing where I'm like, I never respond right away to DMs anymore. Like because I'm a pretty responsive person when it comes to like work. But when it comes to people like trying to say stuff or express their emotions, I always take a step back and I come like I'll turn it off and I'll come back.
Yeah, and especially I think the intent of your page is we want to suggest awesome places to eat.
Yeah. And
I kind of had the same struggle. I was like, oh, am I not? Here's how I feel, but is this my time or place to say this? And my take on it was like, we roast coffee for you to drink. Mm-hmm. This is not my place to speak. If anything, if I were to be posting a lot about the issues that I really do feel strongly about, I would be taking attention away from somebody that is way more educated and has a way better voice than I do.
Exactly.
But that's really smart, and just like not reacting right away to DMs.
Yeah.
Because I think, especially with an account like yours, where you have 70,000 followers, sometimes people will fire DMs off to huge followers and make it super aggressive just to see if you respond. And they don't realize that you're like, no, that's Golnaz on the other side.
Yeah, that's an actual person. Yeah, I've gotten those before where like they're like snide comments or something. We get very few like negative comments. And like once I respond, I always respond in like killing with kindness kind of thing. Like, thanks for your like feedback and da-da-da-da. I usually never get a response back. And it's always just like people are looking for attention or just like, let me just, because they think it's like some company that runs, I don't know, whatever. It's social media.
Yeah.
But I think it's kind of funny sometimes when that happens.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a set response, but it's rarely serious.
Yeah.
We just posted a video that's clearly a joke on Reels, trying to figure out what Reels is on Instagram.
I think I saw it.
Yeah, we did one that was in reverse, and it's like, it's very clearly not real. But someone was like, this is fake. It's clearly in reverse. And I just was like, well, time is a flat circle. So to say that was in reverse.
I like that. Yeah.
Because once you realize it's like, oh, if you get angry at that, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. So I got some questions here that I was kind of brainstorming having you in here that I'm curious about. So how would you react if you're like a restaurant, especially during these times, if you have an account reach out and be like, hey, if you give me free food, I'll post a review? How do you view that topic? Because this is something we get. Hey, if you send me coffee, I'll give an awesome post about it. And it's like, okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of tacky. So that's tacky for me. I would never do that. I think the only thing that I've ever done was like, hey, I'm coming by just to say hi, like kind of thing. Like I did it recently for our food guide because I needed content. I'm like, hey, just so you know, we're coming by, and I'm going to leave it up to them if they want to be that hospitable person, be like, okay, awesome, we'll treat you, I don't think I ever went and told someone like, hey, I'm coming, get some free food ready for me and I will post for you. That to me that's not my tactic. I think it's a little tacky. It's a little aggressive. It's all about how you deliver. I think it's all about business acumen, and it's really like how do you talk to people and how do you provide the value. I don't know. It just seems a little
it's a really fine line, I think.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of restaurants get phone calls too about that. And I'm just like,
the worst I've heard is where somebody eats the meal and then when the bill comes, they're like, here's my following. And it's like, oh God. Especially when especially if it's like the server and you're just like in a shift. It's a fine line.
I think it's rude. I don't know.
See, that's me too. Like, I agree with that. I think it's rude, but it's a fine line because if you're like, hey, we don't have a shop, but let's say we did, and you're like, hey, I'm stopping by. I'd love to like try some things. I'd be like, I want you to try as many things as possible because you have this amazing like community you've created of like Twin Cities foodies. I would want to, of course, not charge you for like, I want you to try everything. I will let you taste whatever you can handle in caffeine content.
Yeah.
But that's because of the hard work you've put in. And I've had people reach out that are just like, hey, if you send me coffee, I'll post about it. And I was like, oh, this looks great. And then you do a little bit of digging and you do run into the pod thing or you start to see some of these tactics. Yeah. And to be honest, I think the correlation I've formed is that the people who do have that strategy probably are totally down to do whatever it takes to have a huge following, even if it's, so even... I really like your idea of just asking like, hey, we're super hyper focused on Minnesota. It's where we're from. It's where we rose. Like, what percentage of your
followers?
What percentage of your people are in the Twin Cities or in Minnesota? Could be a super like not mean way to just be like, hey, we want to make sure this is a win-win.
Exactly. Yeah,
I really like that.
Yeah.
I was going to ask about like, have you had to adapt with the changes of Instagram and how you're changing? Are there like other platforms you're looking at? But it sounds like Eddie is probably kind of your like longer term solution to that. Is that what led to that decision?
Yeah, basically I started TikTok. I was really into TikTok like a year ago. And I was like, oh, I'm so geek. This is gonna be so much fun. And then no, it didn't really pan out. I even did an Eat Drink Dish TikTok and I'm like, this is too much. I'm like, I don't know if I'm getting old for this stuff, but the amount of content, especially video is a little harder. I love video myself, but I was like, I'd rather have a team to do that versus just me doing everything. But yeah, the response was really Eddie because I'm like, this is someplace we can control. And also it's something we own. Like it's our own website. We can do whatever we want. Down the road, if this goes really well, there might be an app. There might be like other stuff that we could do with it. We want to be more animated. Like my dream is to like what I had in mind was like this would be more like a game versus like a guide. It would be like a mix of a game and a guide. Yeah. So you'll like earn points and like it'd just be like a fun thing to be like an escape for people. So yeah, I kind of want to. I don't know. I eventually want to take a break from social media. Like it's 6-7 years of posting is a lot. It's like you can go insane. Basically. Yeah.
So here's an app idea. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. To solve the problem of I don't know where to eat when you're trying to like go with a like husband or wife or girlfriend, whatever, of where should we eat?
Yeah.
You have all your recommendations in an app. And you can go through and swipe right of, yes, I would eat here. No, I wouldn't. Yeah. And then your spouse would also do that. Yep. And then it could tell you places yes, you matched on this place. And that's where you could eat tonight.
I feel like I came with that. I was like, that came in my head too because of Tinder and like dating. I'm like, I love this swiping thing. I wonder if we could do that with other stuff in like life.
I mean, in theory, you could even just do it on your website of a way of like, here are places I haven't been that I want to go. Mm-hmm. But here's the key is, it has to be anonymous from someone else who's doing it so that then when your lists match up, it's their genuine answer of cool. Would you eat here? Because I was thinking about that I was like...
It's like a dating tool then.
That's what I'm saying. You could compare lists and be like, oh, our lists are like identical. Yeah. We probably, if we're on this, you obviously care a lot about food.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is when you're trying to choose a place, I'm the type of person that I'll just be like, if that's where you want to go, of course I want to go there now.
Yeah.
If you can take away the thing of like, oh, I think they just said yes because I recommended it first. If you take away the thing where somebody's like, oh, we both actually want to go here.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be really cool.
I think that'd be really cool too. I like that.
I mean, it could be with like friends and stuff, but I was like, that'd be really cool.
That could be, anything really. But that's cool. I like it.
So where was it? Oh, yeah. So I guess with like TikTok and other things emerging, how much focus do you place on Instagram versus other platforms, or have you decided to just exclusively like Instagram's our bread and butter? This is where we got to focus.
Yeah, I would say like 99% of the time. Yeah, Facebook is. I think we have like 2,000 followers on Facebook. Facebook is just dead.
It's a weird one.
Yeah, it's now like kind of like a weird LinkedIn now. I get like friend requests from random people now that I don't even know. Facebook is just totally different. And it also got really political too. But yeah, besides that, Pinterest, never was a huge fan. Twitter is really hard to grow on Twitter unless you were there like day one. So
do you feel that way about Instagram at all? Do you think it's too late? That
it's saturated.
Like, yeah, it's really tough.
Yeah.
And that is where something like TikTok's really compelling for someone, where even now it's like, well, it's already kind of weirdly developed.
They're still in like the organic phase. So when I posted a video, and I think we got like 1,000 views with 0 followers, like right away. I was like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah. I go down the rabbit hole on TikTok. Yeah.
Yeah.
We, in terms of high-end specialty coffee roasters in Minnesota, we're definitely in the top 3 TikTok people, I think. I'm totally joking. I wanted to make that clear that you weren't really cool, Rob. Thumbs up. Awesome. Keep at it. All right. Let's see if I can read my own handwriting here. Talked about that. So like when you're taking pictures, you said you're not a photographer background.
Yeah.
But your pictures on your account are all just like, they just look delicious.
Yeah.
What are the things you do when you're like positioning pictures, or like, do you have it in mind, or is it just more of a feel thing as you're taking a picture? Like, this looks really good.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. So, I mean, right now we're a lot of our content's user generated, so it's a lot of reposts, but we do find like the style of photography when we repost. So that's why everyone thinks it's just us, the entire content. Oh,
that makes so much sense.
So user generated content is basically like we repost people's stuff. But yeah, our photos are, I mean, you can't even tell because they're so mixed in. But throughout the years, you kind of just learn tips and tricks, and also being around other foodies, other influencers. I never went that route of actually getting a camera. Like a lot of foodies have their own like $1,000 camera, and I'm like, I'm not
standing
doing that.
Up on the chair in the restaurant.
Yeah,
and everyone's just like, oh.
But the trick is really natural lighting, because if you don't have like flash, looks horrible on camera on our phones here. But usually by the window, natural lighting, get as close as you can, and you don't really want to order food that's like brown and yellow, like most of the time. Like, so sometimes you go and you order food for the gram. That's what they order for the gram. You don't really order for yourself anymore. But the more colors, the better. There's like textures, and then if you do like the flat lays, like the overhead shots, you got to now like style the shoot. They got to like put little napkins here and there, and like. You just kind of like, after a while, you pick stuff up, but it's all practice, yeah.
And when you're reposting like user-generated photos, is that something where like you reach out to them and you're like, hey, I love this photo, can I use it? Or
no, usually we only, because now we have such a following, I mean, we get, I don't know, like 20 photos a day we're tagged in.
Oh.
So we have a library. Like our hashtag has over 70,000 photos.
Oh, and that makes sense, because it's like, tag us if you want to be featured. You already, they're like, I want to be featured.
You're basically building a library of content, And in return, so it's like a give and take. In return, they get featured on our page.
Yeah.
That's why like a lot of influencers in Minnesota, when they first started out, like we were there when they were at like 1,000 followers, and now they're at 15,000, and then usually they just stop tagging you because they're like, okay, we're good, like I don't need to be because they use this as a boost. And I didn't know that was a thing because I was not focused on boosting other people's accounts. But after a while, like a few years, I heard like people saying, oh yeah, this is where you go to get followers. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess when you get featured, people start following. Like I didn't really like click, that didn't really click right away. So now we're kind of careful on like how much exposure we give certain people, because we don't want to just like give people followers, because it's a value. It's free boosting basically.
Yeah, and that's interesting, especially when you're like 99% focused on Instagram. Yeah. It's like it is kind of a thing where it's like, how much is it promoting someone else's thing that's doing the exact same thing, or how much is it that like the rising tide raises all boats? And I think that'll change when you launch Eddie, because even if someone else is getting boosted, if they end up on your page at all, like the goal is like, hey, this is really what we're doing over here now. You got to check this out.
Yeah. And for the longest time, because we got city pages 5 years in a row, like best Instagram. After the 5th year, I was like, we're good. I'm done. Like, we don't need anymore. But I was also waiting for something else to come and beat us. Like, I was like, all right, eventually someone's going to come and like surpass us, because, you can't always be on top. So I was like, I don't know. I feel like the fall is going to happen. But when that didn't happen, I'm like, all right, so I think we legit have something here. Now it's time to figure out how to make this into like a business, like a real like monetizing. We have revenue streams and all that stuff going on.
And so 15 months of planning, where does it start, and what has been the biggest challenge of getting this project to fruition? Obviously this year contributes a bit to that.
Yeah, for me it was finding the right people. I've had a lot of interns that have helped me. I have a lot of people that come in and out of Eat Drink Dish. Just like, I mean, I can't pay anybody. Everything's self-funded. Everything's from my own pocket. Actually, I also got like a $500 grant from my founder story, which was awesome this week. So that was kind of cool. But that was like the first time I've ever gotten money outside. So a lot of people that come in and helped me did it for free. And so it was really hard to rely on people to stick around if they don't have skin in the game. So I had that business partner for 2 years, and then I got rid of her. Then I was alone for like until now. I think this 2020. I've already gone through like 3 or 4 other people too that I've been like kind of interviewing in a way, or like we do a trial and error and be like, can we work together or not? And now it's like 4 of us kind of, but I'm like really the full-time person still.
Yeah.
So that people, right, finding the right people. The designer and developer of Eddie is my good friend Teresa, and we met in like middle school. So she's originally from Minnesota, and then she moved to like the Bay Area, and then now in Seattle. And so we reconnected maybe like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and she was coming from the fashion school, that kind of design and styling, to now UX UI. So user experience and user interface, and website development, branding. And she's like, I need to build my portfolio. And I love working with you. We love working with each other. Let's try to like do something together. So that's where it was. It was just like a passion project. And I think we started last July or something, just brainstorming. And I thought a guide would be a good thing just because it's simple. It's not super complicated. And I know there's like other guides out there, but like there really wasn't like what we want to develop. And we also always want to be different and unique and speak to the culture as well. So
I guess finding reliable guides is tough.
Yeah. It's kind of like a dead industry. I don't know if it's the industry, but like you only get guides at like hotels or whatever.
It's almost like larger companies got a hold of guides or lists, and they just go, oh, these get really high engagement, so let's create a list.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to see it because it reminds me a bit of, I would 100% guarantee you're not familiar with Sprudge. Have you heard of them before?
Sprudge?
Yeah, you have to be a big time
like sludge. No,
you have to be a big time coffee nerd. But
oh no,
they're these independent guys that started Sprudge.
Okay.
And anytime I travel to a new city, that's usually the first place I look for. Have they written an article about where to drink coffee in this city?
Okay.
Because it's 2 people who are passionate about coffee.
Got it.
And that's what they're doing. And so they're
that's
real,
cool.
like they're real big time coffee nerds. And so I trust what they say about versus like random lists.
Yeah.
I don't know. And so to be able to become like the Twin City, I can't really think of one off the top of my head. I know you've got like your Eater that's kind of like nationwide, and Thrillist. They have a lot of lists that come out
Infatuation
frequently.
is another one. I don't know if it's not really big here, but Infatuation. I don't know.
And so those are usually like pretty good lists, but I guess I would never even think have they been there? I just assume not. I assume it's a list based on like word of mouth, or just they know someone, hey, do you know, versus we've been in every single one of these places.
Yeah.
It's a really good idea.
And sometimes, they do like the contribution model where they'll find somebody and pay them and they contribute to a piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Really excited to see it.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to see how people respond to and how it grows.
Yeah. So if a restaurant or who's your primary customer you're working with on the consulting side?
On my consulting side, hopefully I really want to stick with like food, and then like the auxiliary of that, like health and wellness, food, beverage, health and wellness, and then basically stick there, like beverages too. I don't know.
So who is your perfect customer? If someone knocked on your door and said, hey, I am blank, I need help with blank, what is that to you?
I love helping the startup aspect of it. So there's 2 customers, either the people that are like starting up and they need help to like brand something or develop a whole new marketing plan or whatever, just the launch. And the other ones are the ones that are like revamping, or like either like 30-year-old companies that just fell behind on digital and just want to rebrand themselves, get themselves back on the market. Those are the 2.
I dig it.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see Eddie. I think it's a great idea. That's something that I'm trying to think about with Folly. That's like, okay, we've got an like pretty solid Instagram following, but like, how do we, as things change and Reels comes out, I'm like, what is this? How do I do that? That I'm like, oh wait, it's the things that we control are probably the long term going to be what's best for us, and also how you engage your customer base. And so that's the interesting thing is like, what you're doing right now with Instagram, it's not YouTube. They're not paying you for your content. That you're almost like converting people to customers versus just like casual observers. And it's going to be a different like lane of like, hey, if you appreciate the work we're doing, here's what we're doing and how to like support, but also get value out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Building, I mean, the lifestyle brand is ultimately the goal, is to like build a lifestyle brand around food experiences and like beyond. So hopefully we can get out of food. Maybe we'll do products, like all that stuff.
Okay. So obviously Eat Drink Dish MPLS is the Instagram handle.
Yes.
Website is eatdrinkdish.com.
Eatdrinkdishmpls.com.
Eatdrinkdishmpls.com.
Yep.
Where can somebody find Eddie? Because by the time this comes out, it will have launched.
It's eatswitheddie.com.
Gosh, I keep using that pen. That doesn't work. Eats with EDDY.
Yeah, eatswitheddie.com.
Cool. We'll put that in the show notes so people can find it. We'll definitely post that on your end or on our end to help promote that. And then once the tasting room becomes more, I haven't even like officially announced this, but basically December, January, we're not going to be open just because like December is our crazy month. Okay. January is like, I like to breathe on like 1 day a week for a month. Yeah. And so also obviously with COVID and all the unpredictable things about what's going to happen this winter, but once we're up in the spring, we're definitely going to be on that.
On Eddie.
Yeah, on Eddie. We'll get that going. Awesome.
Love it.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'll end it like I end everyone and say, have a nice day.